Cars is a CGI animated movie from Disney and Pixar, making its debut on June 9, 2006 as the seventh CGI film overall for Pixar Animation Studios. It's a CGI movie set in a world entirely populated by automobiles, or anything with wheels mostly, and it's full of richness and colorful life as well as entire racing cultures that anybody can enjoy. This is an animated film for car fanatics like myself, and seeing previews of this movie in my preteen years, it really blew my mind. As a car fanatic myself and a big racing game lover, I was really looking forward to this, as I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen, and there's really nothing else like it in the animated and CGI world. However, it seemed to be centered entirely on stock car auto racing, like Days of Thunder. And to be honest, I'm not really a fan of NASCAR. I actually find stock car oval racing with hundreds of laps to be boring in my opinion, even when I was young. Seeing cars go at it with hundreds of laps with nothing but speed and less excitement that drags on doesn't really appeal to me and mostly puts me to sleep. I merely watch the movies and not really the real motorsport events. Nevertheless, I was hooked on the upcoming franchise that was fixing to debut, and I just couldn't stop talking about it. Imagining incredible ideas of what certain cars would look like in the Disney and Pixar car style, like GT sports cars in the style of Pixar's cars. The list goes on and on and on. Now, animated talking cars is nothing new, but it's still an awesome concept, with some animated features that feature moving anthropomorphic cars, and its only defining design trait is the placement of the eyes. Back then, when Chevron Gasoline Company had an awesome franchise called Chevron Cars, their eyes were on the headlights of the cars. It made its debut in 1995 and came to an end in 2011. They had a great run for 15 years, and I thought they were really cool in my opinion. But unfortunately, they didn't do much with it, just as the toys themselves. I also imagined how awesome a Chevron Cars video game would be, featuring every single vehicle in its production run. But unfortunately, that never came to be either. Disney and Pixar's cars were pretty much inspired by Chevron Cars, apparently, but they decided to do the animated cars a little differently. They would still have mouths on their bumpers, but their eyes would be on the windshield this time. And with that, they have redefined an animated talking car. I was one of those that played the video game first before seeing the movie. Yep, I was one of those people. I would eat up anything Cars related at that time, so I immediately got my hands on it by renting it back then, back when renting games was still a thing. After seeing the movie, it became one of my favorites of all time, looking forward to each new entry that comes after. Cars is pretty much the most underrated animated movie franchise of all time. A lot of Disney and Pixar lovers really dislike the film and prefer other franchises that came before, which is really sad, honestly. I mean, seriously, who doesn't think Cars is cool? I do. And if you love automobiles, then you'll love the Cars movie. It's a no-brainer. But anyway, that's a story for another time. Let's talk about the Cars video game that was released a few days before the theatrical debut of the movie. It was developed by Rainbow Studios, famous for the ATV Off-Road Fury and the MX vs. ATV video games back then. And it's a no-brainer that their amazing vehicle handling and physics would be used as the structure for gameplay of this title. It's like the jump from motorbikes and ATVs to four-wheeled animated talking cars. How cool is that? It was well received, and I enjoyed my time with it as well, but not as much as I'd hoped. I actually have a lot of bones to pick with this very game, because it's a game that promises to be extraordinary in my thoughts, but it would end up being a very bare-bones experience after so much of my time with it back then. Yes, I said it, bare bones. Hence the title of this video is the reasons that the very first Cars video game is more disappointing than you think. Even after around 18 to 19 years after its debut, I will highlight what is good and what is bad with the game, and what could be done to prevent a bare-bones offering from happening again. Cars the video game has pretty good racing, but I was left disappointed with the final offering when they didn't do much with it. It's been close to 19 years since this game's debut, and I've been itching for a chance to get this off my chest. So here it is now. Enjoy the ride. First, let's start with the good parts of the first Cars video game. First of all, the gameplay is very good. The great physics and gameplay that Rainbow Studios is known for back in the early 2000s with their ATV and MX games are carried over and used as the main structure of the physics. The cars drive very well, and you could do all kinds of cool stuff such as the bunny hop, go on two wheels, drive backwards like Mater does, and more. It's all pretty good fun. Next, the story mode is also not bad either. It's a continuation of the events after the first Cars movie, but unfortunately, I played through the entire story mode before watching the movie. This was when the game just debuted, and I was merely renting it, because I'm not big on buying games at full price blindly. So I spent a big chunk of my time completing the story. You have a big world of Radiator Springs to explore around in, and you get to participate in all kinds of cool challenges and hunt for collectibles, and meet new characters you haven't seen before. It's the usual open world stuff if you're into that kind of thing. A pretty good place to explore around, but this is not the one thing that I'm entirely focusing on, and I will tell why later. The story mode was cool, but after beating it, I never went back to play it again. Also, the music is fine. It fits the game's world, and there's also licensed music tracks that would be right at home with the movie and the Cars world. You ever seen a cartoonish Disney licensed video game with licensed music tracks? They are few far in between. Next is the tracks. They did a pretty good job offering a variety of different tracks to race on. You can race in the desert of Radiator Springs, Sarge's racetracks of his own, and the foresty mountainside of Tailfin Pass. They are all pretty good track designs and environments with different routes to take, but what's lacking is the weather option, or, if I recall correctly, the ability to play the tracks in the opposite direction. More options for the tracks would be cool. Now I'll be pointing out the bad in this game, because I think a lot of bad things in this game far outweigh the good, turning this from a good game to a passable yet mediocre racer. First is the minigames. You have a lot of things to do, such as tractor tipping, learning how to turn right to go left from Doc Hudson, chasing down speeders with Sheriff, among others. They are fun to play at times temporarily, but it isn't something I would sink hours into. Meaning, it gets old really fast thanks to this critical flaw, which I'll eventually get into. If I have to pick the most entertaining minigames out of all of them, it would be high-speed heists with the delinquent road hazards, with a solid techno-theme composition that really gets your groove on. It's pretty cool. Next is the Piston Cup races. Now, I fully understand that it is part of the Cars movie and series, and there are some times where I had some fun with it, but it has never really been my cup of tea to play through. You have different oval tracks to race on, and have a limited selection of playable characters to choose from specifically for this part. So if you enjoy NASCAR racing, you'll get a kick out of this. But me, it's not something I would sink hours into either. Next is hands down my biggest complaint, and one that ruined the game for me. The roster of playable characters leaves so much to be desired. Immensely. You have a very limited roster of playable characters to play as in the normal street racing modes, which is one that I normally focus on. Of course, the game has introduced a ton of original characters that you see in the story mode. Unfortunately, they aren't playable either. You can only race against them as opponents, and there's no way that the player can take control of these characters. It doesn't make sense. At all. Luigi is playable in one minigame, but isn't a playable character in regular races, which is very disappointing. Sarge, Fillmore, they aren't playable characters either, which also adds even more to the disappointment. It further adds to the fact that the character roster lacks so much variety that it hurts. Probably the biggest offender of them all is having Wingo as the only playable character of the delinquent road hazards. That's right, you only have Wingo, and that's it. Boost, DJ, and Snot Rod, they are only NPCs, and you cannot race as them in regular races. Only against them. It just doesn't make any sense. This is just a big slap to the face for me, How the hell can you have Wingo as the only playable racer of the delinquent road hazards, but Boost, DJ, and Snotrot are not? For the love of Chrysler, what was THQ thinking? That's just lazy.
You gotta be kidding me.
So the character roster is truly lackluster, and one of the main reasons I haven't sunk hours into this game as I did what came after. It absolutely sucks. The two Cars video games that came after the original, Mater National and Racerama, are far better. Both of them may have flaws, but they have a much better lineup of playable characters than the original game, which ultimately kept me playing a lot. It's not perfect, but it's better than what came before. The DRH are cut out, unfortunately, as well as Sally, the Porsche, but Sarge, Fillmore, and Luigi are finally selectable, which gives the character roster a little more variety, which is what the game truly needed. And also the standouts for Mater National's roster is the European circuit racers, like Otto from Germany and Koji from Japan. They all look equally badass. This continued to Racerama with the likes of Candice, Stinger, and others. This is a perfect example of a big world, but very little given to the gamers as a full game release. Meaning, they could have done a lot more, and I'm specifically pointing out the first game. There was also a PSP version developed by Locomotive Games, which are also known as Pacific Coast, Power and Light. They developed the PSP version of Cars, and at times, it's a little better than the console versions. The roster of playable characters is far better than the one on the console versions. Any of the remaining Radiator Springs characters that were not available to play as in the console versions are indeed playable on the PSP versions. Sarge, Fillmore, Luigi, even Lizzie. The player can race as, but they can only be unlocked through multiplayer, which is really stupid to say the least. Thankfully, they can be accessed with a button combination in the menus, and the best part, all 4 members of the delinquent road hazards are playable. That's right, playable. They are not NPCs only, which you can never play as. Just select them, and boom, you're them. Why can't the console versions do this? The PSP version is also a really good arcade racer for you to take on the go. It has cool tracks and fun old-school racing action similar to what you see on the Dreamcast or the early 2000s racing games. So if you enjoy arcade racers, then I highly recommend that you give Cars on the PSP a try. Next is the final part of this video. There is hope for the original Cars video game to be better than its original release, thanks to modders. First off, we see videos of modders modding the Wii versions of the game to make NPC characters selectable, such as Sarge, Luigi, Boost, or DJ, with the likes of classic cards like Fletcher, and the colorful muscle cards like Barry being playable by the player, and vice versa. This is a perfect example of modders doing a much better job on already released games than the developers could ever accomplish. The devs did a decent job on the games, but of course, modders make them even better. So I look forward to more of this as it develops. And soon, we will have the ultimate version of the original Cars video game for everyone to play. There's also an ongoing project for Mater National on PC called Cars, High Octane, or Super Drive Edition. Its goal is to make the ultimate feature-packed mod of the Cars video game experience that started by Rainbow Studios. The later games were not developed by Rainbow, but I just wanted to throw that out there. They just continue what was established by Rainbow Studios. The goal? It's to bring back every single playable character and track from the 3 Cars video games into one package. Needless to say, I'm excited and been following this for years, and hopefully we'll get to see it in its best state possible. Ka-chow indeed.
In your dreams, Thunder.
Yeah, right. Thunder. What's he talking about, thunder?
You know, because thunder always comes after lightning. Kapow!
Who here knew about the thunder thing? That's a red Show us the boo!
So that's it for this video. Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe for more entertaining content by me. Thank you guys for watching, and happy racing.